Missing for weeks without a trace, they found a cute dragon Hatchlings cuddling with. The storms of Calypso's prime could erase an entire colony's tracks overnight. They were not storms of mere wind and rain, but of electrical surges that bled across the skies like burning rivers. Even reinforced shelters groaned under the assault. And in the midst of this hostile world, 3 children had vanished without a trace. For weeks, search parties combed the thick forests, the jagged cliffs, and the neon-lit caves where the planet's bioluminescent fungi grew like living lanterns. Drones buzzed overhead, and mapping satellites swept every canyon. But the colony's families were forced to watch hope diminish. The names of the missing, Jonas, Lyra, and Mick, were whispered at every meal in the communal halls. Commander Alara Vey, head of planetary security, carried the weight heavier than most. Jonas was her nephew. We have scoured the east sectors. Nothing. Her lieutenant reported after the 21st day. His voice was heavy, his face hollow from lack of sleep. No tracks, no signals, no bodies. The silence afterward was worse than shouting. The colony was small. Every parent, every sibling, every friend was tethered by the absence. And yet, on the 28th day, a drone scanning the western marshlands caught something. Heat signatures. Multiple life forms clustered in the ruins of what appeared to be an old alien temple half buried by vines and moss. Alara went herself. The trek into the marsh was brutal. The ground sucking at boots, the air thick with biting insects that shimmered like shards of glass. Her team carried pulse rifles, though she suspected the weapons would be useless if they encountered what the colonists feared most, the red drakes of Calypsis. These creatures, alien dragons with wings like storm sails and scales that reflected lightning, were rarely seen, but the colonists knew to avoid them. Drakes were territorial, cunning, and above all, protective of their young. No one had ever seen hatchlings up close, and lived to speak about it. The ruined temple loomed from the swamp, carved from black stone that drank in the light. The carvings across its walls depicted coiled serpentine figures, likely draconic ancestors worshipped by whatever ancient race once dwelled here. Alara, whispered one of her scouts, pointing ahead. Movement flickered in the shadows. Small shapes. She raised her rifle, but then froze, because out of the broken archway of the temple stumbled Jonas. He was covered in mud, thinner than when she'd last seen him, his eyes wild. And clinging to his arm was Lyra. Behind them toddled Mick. But they were not alone. Around the children scampered 3 dragon hatchlings, no taller than Alara's waist. Their scales shimmered silver blue, and their wings were still soft, folded like damp paper. The children's arms were wrapped protectively around them, and, most astonishing of all, the hatchlings pressed close to humans, nuzzling, chirping softly like overgrown birds. The missing children had not merely survived, they had bonded. The retrieval was chaos. The scouts shouted warnings, urging Alara to drag the children away before the adult drakes returned. But the moment they tried to separate the hatchlings from the kids, all hell broke loose. The little dragons hissed, spreading their tiny wings, and Jonas screamed, "Don't hurt them! They're ours! They saved us!" The hatchlings spat sparks of static that fried one of the team's drones midair. The children wrapped themselves around their scale companions, refusing to let go. Alara made a snap decision, something that would either save them all or doom the colony. She ordered her team to lower their weapons. "We move together," she said, voice steady. Children and hatchlings both. Her men stared in disbelief, but obeyed. It took hours to coax the children back through the marshlands, and the hatchlings padded faithfully alongside them, trilling with odd affection. When they reached the colony walls, a crowd had already gathered. Parents gasped. People cried. But then silence fell as they saw the dragons. The hatchlings curled up on the ground outside the gates, their wings twitching, their small heads resting in the children's laps. The sight would have been adorable, were it not for the knowledge that somewhere above, full-grown red drakes surely circled. The debriefing was difficult. Jonas explained between mouthfuls of food how they'd wandered too far during a storm, how the lightning had blinded their locator beacons. They had stumbled upon a nest in the temple ruins and collapsed from exhaustion inside it. When the eggs cracked, Jonas said, eyes wide with wonder, they thought we were their clutch mates. "They followed us," Lyra added, stroking one hatchling snout as it chirped happily. "They cuddle when it's cold. They sing at night." Alara recorded everything, though her heart warred with itself. She had her nephew back. All 3 children had survived what should have killed them, but this miracle came at a cost. "Commander," her lieutenant said grimly when they stepped aside, "the adult drakes will come, and when they find their young inside our walls." "I know," Alara whispered. That night, she couldn't sleep. From her quarters, she heard faint sounds drifting across the colony, soft whistles, almost like lullabies. The hatchlings were singing. The children slept beside them in the infirmary, arms entwined. The image etched itself into Alara's mind. Missing for weeks, the children had been found alive, cuddling with dragons. Days passed. The colony became divided. Some saw the hatchlings as a threat, ticking bombs that would draw death from the skies. They demanded the creatures be released back to the wild, or killed before their parents came. Others, especially the children, argued that the hatchlings had chosen them, that the bond between human and dragon was proof of something greater, coexistence. Illyra herself was torn. The colony had struggled to survive Calypso's prime for years, always on the edge of destruction. Could these creatures be allies rather than enemies? The question was answered violently on the fifth night. The sky tore open with lightning. Shadows blotted out the moons. The adult drakes had come. The first attack shook the colony walls like an earthquake. Towers cracked. Sirens wailed. Colonists scrambled to shelters. The soldiers manned turrets, but even their plasma fire glanced off the scales of the enormous winged beasts. Illyra raced to the command post, barking orders, when Jonas appeared in the doorway, clutching one of the hatchlings. "Stop shooting," he cried. "They're not attacking to kill, they just want them back." On the monitors, Illyra saw the truth. The drakes weren't slaughtering indiscriminately. They were battering defenses, tearing at gates, circling, searching. Her heart hammered. She had one chance. She ordered the weapons to stand down. The soldiers hesitated, furious, but obeyed, carrying the hatchlings in their arms. The children walked out through the shattered gates. The entire colony held its breath. The adult drakes descended, wings like thunderclouds. Their eyes glowed crimson, their teeth bared in jagged arcs. But the moment they saw the hatchlings alive and unharmed, their fury ebbed into low, rumbling growls. The biggest drake lowered its massive head, sniffing Jonas and the little dragon cradled in his arms. For a moment, Illyra feared it would devour them both. Instead, it let out a deep, vibrating sound like approval. And then, astonishingly, the hatchlings chirped back. The children remained by their sides, refusing to let go. And slowly and possibly, the adults accepted it. In the weeks that followed, an uneasy truce formed. The drakes nested near the colony, but did not attack. The hatchlings split time between their human companions and their dragon kin. The colonists began to realize they were no longer prey, but part of a larger, stranger family. The scientists studied the bonds with awe. The dragons responded not just to voice, but to emotion, as though their biology was attuned to empathy. The children's innocence, their trust, had created a bridge no adult could have forged. Illyra watched her nephew with the dragons and thought of the old carvings in the temple ruins. Perhaps the ancients who built it had once shared such bonds. Perhaps history was not repeating, but awakening. Months later, when the storms came again, the colony did not cower. The drakes soared above the walls, wings cutting through lightning, protecting both their hatchlings and the humans below. For the first time since settling Calypso's prime, the colonists felt safe. Illyra stood on the wall one evening, watching the children play with the half-grown dragons in the grass beyond the gates. Jonas laughed as his hatchling bowled him over, wings flapping clumsily. Lyra and Mick raced theirs, shrieking with joy. Missing for weeks without a trace, the children had returned with more than survival. They had returned with family. And, in their innocence, they had changed the fate of two species forever.